himself in the spring school that we organized last time, and he showed us a lot of things on also in glacier hydroclimatology, of which sort of an overview talk he's giving this time. But once again, I would encourage those who become interested in the topic, please go ahead and look at our YouTube channel as well as the wiki where all the material is there. Feel free to explore that. Asif, by the way, has a long relationship with WISS. He's a PhD from Cambridge, and then he went to IASA, the same organization where Dr. Venskaya is from. And he spent a year there as a postdoc with their water group. And hopefully he's joining us, the WISS family, from this week as one of our research directors. So it's a pleasure to welcome Asif back, and over to you. Tell us all the good things about glacier hydrology.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be back here and joining this summer school. Thank you very much for a kind introduction. I'll be briefly saying something about the snow and glacier hydrology and role of remote sensing. How we can use remote sensing data sets if we have limited data sets even. So how can we use those limited remote sensing data sets and can get some beneficial and accurate and precise results out of those. By the way, this is some of my academic background. I did my bachelor's in civil engineering from UT Peshawar and executive MBA from Princeton University, as well as GS and remote sensing from University of Peshawar, and then I did my PhD from University of Cambridge in water and climate change. I remained affiliated with, I've worked with different prestigious organizations, in which some of the organizations are listed here. So this is the outline of my today's presentation, that why snow and glacier hydrology is so important globally, and why it is important for the Indus Basin. After that, I'll be discussing some of the constraints of snow and glaciers, particularly in the upper Indus Basin, and afterwards I'll be discussing snow and ice separation, and we'll explain how we can derive melt rates from those separation. And then I'll be showing some of the results if we use or if we include precise degree effectors or melt rates, how we can get precise results. So what is going on globally? There is a population rise. Population is increasing incredibly. So if there will be an increase in population, there will be more demand for food, for water, and for shelter, energy, and industrial development. So we have to increase our resources to cater for all those needs. But in parallel, what is going on there is a global warming, and it is producing most of the glaciers globally. Those are receding mass at various rates. The black one is for the Karakoram Himalayas. So it's an average rate of decline in the mass or in the areal shrinkage. So what will happen if we lose mass of glaciers? So initially what will happen, we will getting more water, but later on, like 3 or 4 decades after, we'll be having less water resources. So we'll be producing less agricultural or irrigation water, and our electro power will also be reduced due to the decline in water resources. Also, UN is also focusing on different SDGs, in which water is also one of the important SDGs. So one has to look at the water resources under climate change very, very closely, and one has to derive precise and accurate results for sustainable development and for accurate policy making. These are some of the potential mitigation measures if one wants to keep themselves protected from the climate change impact. In Pakistan also we can deal with such with such things, but Pakistan is not the only one country who can prevent, for example, or decline the greenhouse gas emissions, because India and China is producing much more greenhouse gases compared to Pakistan. So it's not a local phenomena, it's a global or regional phenomena. So to protect or to mitigate the potential measures, so one has to carry out such prevention measures. Why snow and glacier is so important in the upper Indus Basin or in the Indus Basin? Because the mountainous region, which is known as upper Indus Basin, upstream of the Vela Dam, so one can see this plot. If one can imagine this is a mountain, so what is happening? The precipitation is increasing with the altitude increase. So over here, like we are receiving about 300 to 400 millimeter of precipitation. Below 2500 meter, we are receiving about 250 millimeter of rainfall. And after this altitude, we are receiving snow and rainfall, and the peak snow is occurring between 5000 and 6500 meter altitude, which is around 2000 millimeter per year. This snowfall is stored during winter months and released once the summer months come. Even we can see from this plot, which is between precipitation, this is the precipitation plot, one can see the peak precipitation occurs during March and April, which is the winter snowfall. But the peak flow is during July and August. So this snowfall is stored as snow or glacier and released once the temperature rises during summer months. What will happen if climate change occurs? So there will be a reduction in firm volume, as well as it will become more dense, so it will capture more energy, so there will be more water production due to the same phenomena, because we'll have more dense, or the exposure of glacier will be more compared to previous decades. So if the exposure increases, then we will have more melt from glaciers, and glaciers will start receding like it is happening at the moment. However, one can see there is a huge uncertainty between different hydrological models. In each case, the red one is the model flows, whereas the blue ones are the measured flows. In most of the cases, the model flows are underestimated, but in this one case, the model flows are overestimated. So the reasons are quite different, but the main reasons are using of different precipitation data sets, different snow and glacier data sets, and degree day factors. So we'll be focusing more on different snow cover and glacier cover data sets, as well as the degree day factors in our current today's talk. Similarly, if someone ignored glacier melt contribution, for example, this is an example from the FAO results, who are saying there is an extreme water scarcity in the Indus Basin. But if we look at these red lines, these are their model flows, and the blue ones are measured ones. So if we look at the bars or the charts, we can clearly see their model flows are significantly underestimated, and if someone is claiming there is extreme water scarcity based on these results, they are providing biased results and conclusions. This is, by the way, this is their published article from which they have derived flows for the Indus. One can clearly see for the Indus, the measured flows, the measured ones is 91 millimeter per annum, where their modeled ones, this is their model flows, which is about 18 times less than the actual measured flows. And why this is happening? Because they have ignored snow and glacier melt contribution to flows, plus they have used underestimated precipitation. I'll not go into detail of precipitation data sets, uncertainties, and accuracies. But I'll be sticking to the second bit, which is the contribution from snow and glacier melt. So if we are concerned with the snow and glacier, so what we'll do, we have to have measured precipitation, which is snow and as well as rainfall estimates. So there are different methods of snow measurement. One is manual measurement, like we use the buckets to measure, like the gauging stations to measure snow from the field, like PMD is doing. One is automated measurements. Nowadays, there are automated instruments. We place those instruments in the field, and measurements are done and noted accordingly. So those are providing us automatic measurements, how much precipitation or snowfall occurred during a certain period. And the third one is remote sensing measurements. If we go to the gauging station, there are different types of gauging stations. So non-recording and recording types, which are automated and semi-automated, or manual gauging stations, and some of the WISS stations as well. But due to their different types, there is a kind of different uncertainties from the measurements. For example, if we are measuring snow using gauging stations, the uncertainty can be, or the biases can be from 10% to more than 50%, particularly wherever there is strong winds. If there are strong winds, like in Himalayas, Karakoram, the inaccuracies can reach up to more than 50%. So we cannot directly rely on the measured data sets, particularly the snow measure. The alternate method, which is remote sensing, can be one of the resource to be used in our hydrological or hydroclimatic studies then. There are different data sets. For example, MODIS is one of the examples, which is providing us two-dimensional data. It is not providing us depth, but nowadays there are other remote sensing data sets which are also providing us depth of the snow. So one can use those depth of snow as well in combination to the MODIS snow cover data, and can produce more accurate results. But I'll be sticking to the MODIS data in current presentation, that how can we use MODIS snow cover data to improve our hydrological modeling. So this is an example of the upper Indus Basin, which is upstream of the Bela Dam. There are various small sub-basins in this upper Indus Basin. And what is happening, like one can see during March and April, there is most of the area in the upper Indus Basin is covered with snow, but in July or August, it is the minimum one. So the minimum one can also be considered as the glacier extent in the area. But there is also some of the uncertainties in MODIS data. I'll go through those uncertainties, or the points where rectifications are needed, because we cannot use MODIS data directly. If we use those data sets directly, then we'll be getting also the biased results, like I have shown for the FAO ones. This study will be covering some of the small basins, which are Harmon, Shiog, Shigar, Hunza, and Gilgit Basin, as well as offshore and the whole upper Indus Basin upstream of the Bela Dam. I'll be showing some of the results for these basins. So the number one discrepancy of MODIS data, it cannot provide any information about debris covered ice. What is debris covered ice? It is actually, if we look at different videos even for the glaciers, so there will be always some of the sloughing occurs and avalanches occurs in glaciers, which brings a lot of debris, which is kind of soil from the mountain slopes with them, and those small particles of size covers the top of tongue, the lowermost glacier, which is this part, which is the trunk of the glacier. So most of the glaciers in the Himalayas and Karakoram, their trunks are covered with debris. But debris are providing same albedo as normal barren soil. So this modest data is separating soil as well as ice or snow cover by using its albedo data. So what is happening, like in this case, one can clearly see this bluish type one is snow covered during a certain period, whereas there is nothing. It is showing barren soil in this area, but actually this is not barren soil. This is actually debris covered ice. So one has to reinstate debris covered ice. And if we go into detail of debris covered ice, then we will have two types of debris covered ice. One ice with thin debris cover, and one is ice with thick debris cover. So what is the difference between thin and thick debris cover? The thin debris cover is providing enhancement in melt production because it is capturing more energy and it is expediting the melt from the glacier trunks. Whereas the thick one is providing insulating effect. So the melt rate is declining as much as 50% of this melt of a clean ice. So the melt rate depends on the debris cover as well as the strata of ice as well as snow. If we have snow, it will melt differently compared to ice. But ice, clean ice will melt differently compared to ice with cover, which is debris cover, thin or thick. Second bit, which is also a discrepancy or the constraint of the modest data. Modest data cannot capture small glaciers. If we have very, very small glaciers, then it cannot capture. For example, in this figure, which is from the Gilgit Basin, there are a lot of small glaciers based on lens data. And if we take an example of few ones, there is no modest data. One can see a tiny bit of modest data over here, but there is no modest data in whole of this figure. But if we zoom in these 3 or 4 small glaciers, from Landsat data we can confirm for a certain period that, okay, there are small glaciers which are actually not captured by modest data because of its resolution. Its resolution is about 500 meters. So if we are using modest data, what we have to do, we have to reinstate small glaciers as well as debris covered ice. These are some of the examples of glacier data. Glacier data is also having a lot of uncertainty. One can clearly see, like for example, if we have 4 examples, for example, so one can clearly see there is a lot of, for example, if we look at this particular point, there is no glacier in DCW, there are some glacier in Glens, whereas almost no glacier in Modice, which is based on modest data, and again there are few glaciers in RJ4 data. But if we look at in more detail which data is good or the best available, we have to do more research that, okay, what are the sources of these glacier data sets, from where these have been derived, and whether this is accurate or not. So there are more than 10 or 12 glacier data sets available nowadays. For example, if we're looking at the Astor Basin, we can see the difference is from 190 square kilometer to 541 square kilometer. One Modice is also providing around 150 square kilometer. So if someone is using 150 square kilometer of glacier area compared to 540 square kilometer of area, both of them will have significantly different results at the end of the day, because from 550, around 550 square kilometer, they will be saying, okay, there is 60% of glacier melt contribution to flows, but the other one will be saying, oh no, there is only 10% of contribution. So And afterwards, if they are also considering the climate change impact, and if there is a rise in temperature, they will be also multiplying 1 degree centigrade melt rise will be quite significant in 50% glacial contribution compared to the 10% one. So to have a precise and accurate result, one has to rectify also these things. So remote sensing is providing us help, but one has to be very, very precise and accurate in their initial analysis and selection of different data sets that, okay, they are selecting an accurate data and they are providing good analysis at the end. So if we look at the some of the discrepancy of glacier data, for example, this is RGI, and comparison of RGI and Glenn's data, one can clearly see the black line is from Glenn, the red one is from RGI. So one can clearly see this whole bit is not glacier but included in RGI data. So one has to zoom in and has to reconfirm, okay, this data set has been derived, for example, from Landsat data, and has this been derived accurately or not? And if it is not accurately derived, then they have to confirm, or they have to compare different data sets and their base data, for example, Landsat in this case, and has to end with the best available data set. So if we are concerned with the glacier, what we can do, one can do the comparison from different Landsat data sets, because different glaciers data sets are a combination of digitized data from different researchers. So they have selected Landsat data from a particular date and digitized, okay, this is glacier area, for example, of Siachen Glacier. One has come up with a certain value. The other researcher took a Landsat data from another date and they came up with a different result. Okay, they said, no, it's not 500, for example, it's not 500, but it is 600. But they have also done such analysis, like it also depends on the end researcher who are digitizing the glaciers. So if someone is digitizing it very precisely, they will come up with good results, but others' results will be highly biased. So one can do comparison of base data, which is Landsat data in this case. If we take a lot of Landsat data sets and compare different glacier boundaries with those Landsat data sets, one can reach with the result, okay, which data is good or bad. So looking at this plot, one can clearly see, okay, this Glenn's data is more reliable than the RGI one. So one has to compare almost all data sets, which are more than 10 data sets at the moment, and they can select the best available data set from those. Also, different researchers have used only single melt rate for their hydrological modeling, which is wrong, because snow has a different melt rate compared to ice, which is about 4 millimeter per degree centigrade per day for snow, and about 7 millimeter per degree centigrade per day for ice. So if someone is assuming whole of the glacier is ice, they are wrong. Because if you look at one of the examples, one can clearly see different parts of the glacier, which is debris covered ice. This part is debris covered ice. This is clean ice, and then one can clearly see snow or snow covered ice. So this whole glacier system will provide melt from different parts, which is debris covered ice, clean ice, and snow or snow covered ice. So what is happening from the atmosphere? It receives radiation or heat from the atmosphere, and each of the part is absorbing energy from the sun according to its reflectance. So snow is reflecting more energy back to the sun or to the atmosphere compared to the debris covered ice. So debris covered ice is absorbing more energy, and the second one is the clean ice, and the third one is snow. So one has to separate these classes, and then they have to assign different degree day, standard degree day factors or melt rate to these classes. So because of these densities of snow and ice, one can see this. There is a huge difference between the density of fresh snow and ice. So one has to consider this in deriving the melt rate or deriving the degree day factors. We did the same. We did the separation of snow, debris covered ice, and clean ice. So this is the comparison of snow, clean ice, and debris covered ice in Gilgit and Hunza. About only 30 to 35% area is clean ice in each case. But different researchers, I'll show you, different researchers considered whole of the glacier as ice. So what happened in their results, like in this one, if this researcher is considering whole of the glacier system as ice, they are ending up with overestimation of flows, because in Hunza, which is a highly glaciarized basin, Shigar is also, as well as Shog. So these are highly glaciarized basins, and when they consider very high melt rates during summer months, they have overestimated the flows. And when they consider additionally the climate change impact, like the increase in temperature, they multiplied those high melt rates with the degree centigrade rise in temperature, and they are saying, oh, there will be such and so percentage of rise in flows. So we cannot rely on such results where such assumptions have been made. So we have to rectify such results. What we did, we have rectified this modest data. We have rectified or reinstated small glacier. We have reinstated this debris covered ice, and we have separated debris covered ice into thin and thick, as well as we have separated snow, clean ice as well, using Landsat data. So we got the threshold limits from the Landsat data and then applied those limits to the modest data. So we got separated modest snow, ice, and debris covered ice data on a daily basis. So this is an example how the snow and ice and debris covered ice is varying during the year. When we ran our model, so this is also an example. For example, if we look at the Hunza Basin, for which I was saying that in Hunza Basin there is a lot of overestimation of glacier melt, one can see that is the study was showing us an estimate of 81% of glacier melt contribution to flow. Whereas a recent study that is providing 33% of glacier melt contribution to flows. So if there is like about 3 times difference in their basic results, their future projections are also doubtful or full of uncertainty. In second case, if we have a store basin, the uncertainty of the glacier melt contribution is ranging between 19% and 63%. But if we look at the end conclusions, like if we derive that how much of contribution is going on, it is providing us about 5.6 meter per annum decline in glacier, which is quite significant. If there is 63% of contribution from glacier, so we are getting like about 5.6 meter decline in glacier per annum. Whereas similar decline have also been based on these studies in Hunza Basin. We use our SRE model, which is a simple model, temperature-based model, to compare how different parameters will affect our hydrological modeling. studies. These are some of the calibration validation plots. We got very good results out of a simple model because we have used best available data sets of precipitation. We have rectified modest snow cover data, and we have used precise degree day factors in our model. So if we look at the sensitivity of degree day factor, so some of the modelers, what they did, they have used underestimated degree day factors. For example, they have used 2.5 millimeter per degree centigrade per day of melt rate throughout the year. So if they are using 2.5 millimeter per degree centigrade per day, they are underestimating the flows up to 30%, particularly in highly glaciarized basins. In second case, if someone is considering 6 millimeter per degree centigrade per day throughout the year, they will be overestimating up to 30%. And the 81% example, they have used 7.5 millimeter per degree centigrade per day. So the overestimation in 7 millimeter per degree centigrade per day is about 50% in Hunza and about 40% in case of Shigar. And for 8 millimeter, it is ranging between 60 and 50%. So if we are using degree day factors or melt rates without separating snow and ice, and we are not considering the temporal variation in the degree day factor, we will be overestimating our flows like I have shown you in the example. Similarly, if we ignore the thickness of debris, then what will happen, like if we assume whole of the debris cover is thick, then it will be about 5 to 10% variation in the end result. And if we ignore whole of the thick and thin debris cover, then again the estimates will be biased by about 5 to 10%. What will happen if these are the A, B, and C are based on the overall results uncertainty. But if we are considering only ice melt contribution to flows, then the results will be quite different. Like if we ignore the thickness of debris, then the variability will be ranging between 25% to about 5% in different basins. So in this case, for example, in Gilgit or in Astor, the percentage variability is more compared to highly glaciarized basins, because in highly glaciarized basins, the percentage of debris cover is quite small. So if we consider or ignore debris cover in highly glaciarized basin, it won't matter a lot. But if we are looking at a basin where the percentage of glacier is too low, then even small bit of debris cover is also making a difference. Particularly, for example, if we ignore the thick and thin debris cover, as well as if we ignore the small glaciers, this discrepancy will reach up to 50%, particularly in those basins where glaciers are small. For example, in Kharmung and in Astor Basin, glaciers are very small, about 3 to 5% of the whole basin. So the contribution to the flows from ice melt is significant if we ignore the small glacier as well as the debris covered ice. In a nutshell, what we can do, we can use gauge and remote sensing data for the snow and glacier hydrology, but one has to rectify the basic results if they are using from the gauging stations or if they are using data sets from the remote sensing data. Second, one has to separate ice from snow as well as the debris covered ice to get precise results. If we are using modest snow cover data, definitely one has to rectify the modest data by reinstating small glaciers as well as the debris covered ice. Because in some basins, like in Kharmung and Astor Basin, the percentage in ice melt will range, or the uncertainty will range up to 50%. In nutshell, there is intense need to improve our hydrological modeling for sustainable development and precise and accurate policy making, and remote sensing can play a vital role in that. So thank you very much for listening and giving me time. Thank you. If you have any questions, please go ask.
Have you some threshold value to differentiate between snow cover and snow free?
Yeah.
But can we have threshold value?
That really depends which data are you using. For example, if you are using Landsat data, then the threshold limit, you can also, I can forward you the link of our paper in which we did the separation, and we have provided the threshold limit in there. Yeah.
Sir, is there any locally developed land surface model to simulate cryospheric processes in FPH region in order to derive important parameters like water equivalent?
You mean, if I'm not wrong, then I'm getting your question that is there any local calibration of how much snow melt is contributing or how much ice melt is contributing, like what are the melt rates from snow and ice?
Yes.
Yeah, there have been some expeditions to the mountain ranges in Karakoram from Chinese groups, particularly for the Karakoram highway portion. So they did a lot of experiments over there, and they derived what would be the melt rate for snow and ice. Yeah, there are examples, and those are also published.
Sir, I'm Irfan from the urban unit. Sir, in one of the slides you depicted a very pretty good graph which is showing that the glaciers are even melting. So if this trend remains continuous for coming decades or even coming centuries, as you also said that there is a global warming as well. So being a civil engineer, we have a one term that known as the benchmark, that is the mean sea level in the Karachi, that is valid for all the, not only the Pakistan, but for whole of the India. And the mean sea level, what I was reading in the past, that is the end result of the average of the millions of the ratings, millions of the elevations, average of the millions of the readings. So if the trend continues that the oceanic level is increasing, so is there any impact on the mean sea level? Are you in a position to any comments?
Yeah, I believe.
If I rephrase and simplify it, if the oceanic level is increasing, let's say due to the melting of the glacier, so what will be the impact on the mean sea level in the Karachi?
Oh, this is quite tricky to answer because there should be a lot of research to reach to that conclusion. But of course, like if you read all of the IPCC reports, the main aim is to reach how much sea surface is rising. So that is the main aim at the end of the day, to measure that how much sea surface will rise with the change in climate. So that is the main aim, number one. Second thing, yes, of course, if there is a lot of glacier melt, the sea surface is rising. For example, there are a couple of studies who conducted the glacier mass balance analysis, and they concluded that there is a 1% rise during 2000 to 2007 due to the glacier melt contribution, like the negative mass balance contribution to the flows. So if it is happening, then there would be a lot of consequences. We are losing our boundary, that is number one. We are losing our territory because if sea surface is rising, so the territory is also linked to the beach area. So we are losing our beach area, so we are losing our territory. That is number one. It is also having a lot of impacts on the aquatic life as well as on the residents who are closer to the boundary or beach. Hope that answers your question. Yeah. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm interested in how knowledge gets used around water and climate. And part of your presentation, your presentation was very illustrative in the sense that it pointed out the caveats to this knowledge production. I wanted to sort of ask how much of the knowledge that is produced by remote sensing, for example, by these softwares, how much of it gets validated from what is happening on ground? And then, what is sort of the gap between the validation from what is happening on the glaciers actually and the data that gets produced from all of these sophisticated techniques? And then how can we work to move, to bring knowledge that is produced through these techniques to, closer to local knowledge?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. Unfortunately, about 1.5 decades before, remote sensing or the researchers were not very interested in producing the glacier boundaries and such things. But after IPCC 2007, which was arguing wisely so that by 2035 all of the glaciers in the Himalayas will vanish, which was quite alarming statement in the IPCC report. So everyone was focusing on this area afterwards. So whatever was before, like only 1 or 2 data sets, everyone had to believe on that particular data. But nowadays there are a lot of researchers, a lot of groups, and a lot of countries are focusing on these areas, and they are providing more and more accurate data sets. So there are a lot of improvements going on at the moment. So one has to produce the improved data and accurate data at local level or at regional level as well as at the global level. Yeah, so it's improving with passage of time.
I have one final question.
Yeah.
So we heard this talk before last year, and it's very, very exciting talk. And today I was listening to it. There are lots of surprises. Now you have been back to Pakistan for about a year. Are policy makers, people who are decision makers, who are looking at these climate change effects, Pakistani government and Pakistani decision making sort of circles, do you find them receptive to these ideas? Or how have they taken to the research, not only just yours, but to the community actually? How are they incorporating these results as they come out, for example, very recently into decision making? Are you witnessing any of that?
Again, like previously, Pakistan was one of the countries where climate change was entirely ignored. But nowadays, like a lot of donor agencies like World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and even the ministry, there is also a Ministry of Climate Change, which is now nowadays quite active in, and they are also establishing the Climate Change Authority, which is kind of similar to environmental impact, the environmental department, environmental agency. So the environmental agency enforced different organizations that you have to provide environmental assessment in each and every PC1. So this Climate Change Authority will also enforce this obligation to the line department. They have to provide the climate change impact analysis in each and every PC1 nowadays. After a while, not nowadays, but the donor agencies like World Bank and ADB, they are enforcing this practice right from now. Like for example, the bus rapid transport in Karachi and Peshawar, they have conducted quite extensive climate change impact assessment for that particular project, and ADB is also considering the climate change impact analysis on other huge investments. Hope that answers your question.
Okay, so let's give a big hand. So we have our next speaker, Dr. Susan Austin will be continuing her lecture series on remote sensing. So